Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some Synchron plays. We're going to show you a couple of combos here. Ones that set up a negate before you summon Junk Speeder, and in this case even hit 5 summons to play around Nibiru. And after I show you a couple of combos, we're going to look at games, and then I'll give you a full deck breakdown. We're going to begin with the combo for Junk Meister, probably the best opener for the new Synchron deck. We're going to activate the effect, revealing any one of these Synchro monsters. Doesn't really matter, we can show our Stardust to flex, and then special summon the Junk Meister. Now we're going to activate the effect of the Junk Meister as it is summoned here, and that is going to allow us to add any Junk monster from the deck to the hand. With this we can add Junk Armor. Now Junk Armor has a Poplar style effect like Snake Eyes Poplar, where it's special summoned when added to our hand except by drawing it. So we're going to special summon the Junk Armor here, and then we're going to activate the effect to Tribute, and that will allow us to special summon the Jet Synchron from our deck. Now, we could make a 5 here, but we're not actually going to do that because I want to set up our negate before we make the Junk Speeder. We're going to activate Junk Meister's effect, reducing its level, and we're going to do it by 1. That way it's a level 3 non-tuner. Now we can synchro for Herald of the Arclight, using Jet Synchron plus Junk Meister. With this, we can establish our Omni Negate. We can play through Nibiru among other hand traps. Jet Synchron gets to activate because it was sent as a Synchro material. Now we can add the Junk Synchron from deck to hand, and we haven't normal summoned yet, meaning we can normal summon the Junk Synchron, and that can now revive the level 2 non-tuner Junk Armor from the graveyard. So we've got level 3 plus level 2. That's going to make 5. Now we can make our Junk Speeder. You're definitely going to want to summon Junk Speeder in the extra monster zone. That way you have enough room to summon 4 monsters from your deck. And we don't play Link monsters anyway, so it's not going to matter if we put Synchros up there. Alright, here's Stardust Synchron, Revolution Synchron, Assault Synchron, and Scrap Synchron. Those are going to be the 4 tuners that we summon from our deck off of the Junk Speeder. Now, we're going to activate the Stardust Synchron effect, and normally we would add Stardust Illumination from our deck to our hand, this card here, but I already opened it, so in this example, I'll just search something else like a Junk Signal, why not? But you would definitely want to get Stardust Illumination every single time. This card's highly important. Okay, from here we're going to want to try to set up the Hyper Librarian as soon as possible, but we can't synchro for level 5 without using the Herald just yet. So we're actually going to synchro summon for Stardust Dragon first, using Revolution Synchron plus Junk Speeder. And we're going to put that Stardust Dragon in the extra monster zone as we have the space now for another monster in the main zone. We're going to use Illumination since we control Stardust Dragon. We can special summon Stardust Trail from our deck. And now we can synchro summon for level 5. We can do Hyper Librarian with Scrap Synchron plus Stardust Trail. Always important to get Hyper Librarian out ASAP as you combo. That way you can get, of course, your draws in. Definitely a very, very crucial part of your board. Next, we're going to make Crimson Dragon. We're going to use Stardust Synchron plus Stardust Dragon, 4 plus 8 equaling 12 here. And now, of course, not only do we get to start drawing off the Hyper Librarian, but of course the Crimson Dragon effect gets to activate here in order to add the Synchro Rumble from the deck to our hand. Alright, here is the search, and then of course we get the draw afterward. Alright, now from this point, we're going to activate the Stardust Synchron in our graveyard. We're actually going to tribute the Assault Synchron in order to revive it. And that'll also revive our Stardust Trail, because we've tributed a monster. We'll summon that, and we're going to hand rip here. Or sorry, we're going to hand rip later. First, we're going to summon the Excel Stardust. We can put that over here, and then now the Excel Stardust gets to activate, of course, after we get our draw, and we can special summon a level 2 or lower tuner from the graveyard. Stardust Trail also gets to activate here, and now we can summon a level 1 non-tuner token to the field, which is actually going to be pretty important. Alright, there's that, and then the Excel Stardust is going to revive the Assault Synchron. And of course we get our draw. Now from this point we're actually going to make our Bestial Dissipator using Assault Synchron plus Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon. Now the two of those are going to make the Dissipator right over here. We get our draw. And then we can actually activate the Dissipator effect to special summon our banished Stardust Synchron that got banished because it was revived off its own effect. Alright, now from here we're going to make Excel Synchron using Stardust Synchron plus our token. We're not going to use it as material just yet, but we need some space on the board. We need it for, as soon as we draw here, the Synchro Rumble, which is going to revive actually one of our level 1 tuners. We'll get Scrap Synchron here, but you could get Jet as well. Doesn't really matter. But now we can go for the Jurashin, the Cursed Thunder God, using our Scrap Synchron plus Bestial Dissipator. And this will do a couple of things. Not only does it establish a board wipe going into our opponent's turn, but now we can activate Crimson Dragon, targeting the Jurashin. And that will let us summon the Majestic Shooting Star Dragon here, which is an Omni Negate that also banishes whatever it negates. And finally, we're going to wrap things up here by Synchro summoning yet another Omni Negate using Excel Synchron and Hyper Librarian. We're going to summon the Baron de Fleur. And since this is our last Synchro summon, it's fine to use Hyper Librarian as a material. So there we go. That's our end board. We've set up a board wipe plus 3 Omni Negates, and I believe we drew a total of 6 cards off Hyper Librarian, all insulated from Nibiru and other hand traps with 1 card. Alright, for our next line here, we're going to start with the Full Speed Warrior. This is going to set up another play for Junk Speeder with an insulation. We're going to add and then activate the Synchro Fellowship. This will let us search both Junk Synchron and Scrap Synchron. And then we'll discard any other random card from our hand that's not one of those two. Alright, now we can actually summon the Scrap Warrior from our extra deck using Scrap Synchron in hand, as well as the Full Speed Warrior that is on the field. Thanks to the Scrap Synchron effect, it can be used from hand as material. Now on summon, the Scrap Warrior gets to activate, and this will let us add a quick play spell called Junk Signal, which will stop any card that would try to negate our Synchro Monster's activated effect, which is of course very, very good for our Junk Speeder. Now to summon the Junk Speeder, we're going to banish Synchro Fellowship out of our graveyard, targeting Scrap Warrior, reducing its level by 1, and now we get an extra normal summon for a Synchron. We're going to normal summon Junk Synchron from our hand, activating in order to summon back the Full Speed Warrior. And once we've got that on the board, we are going to make our level 5 Junk Speeder. And of course, as always, we want to make sure that we end up summoning this Junk Speeder in the extra monster zone. You literally always want to put Junk Speeder up there, because even if you have 5 free monster zones, you might need that extra one very soon in the combo line. You always want to keep as many main monster zones open as possible. Alright, so of course we're going to start a Synchron, the Revolution Synchron, Assault Synchron, and Jet Synchron. Now here I had the Assault Synchron in my hand, so we're going to summon it here in a moment. But we're going to use Stardust Synchron in order to add the Stardust Illumination. Again, I opened it here, so I'll just grab another Junk Signal, but again, you would want Stardust Illumination like the last combo. Let's get that Assault Synchron on the field. Again, this would be summoned off Junk Speeder if you didn't open it. But now we're going to make the Hyper Librarian again right away. We're going to use that with Revolution Synchron and Scrap Warrior. We're going to summon it rather, using the Revolution Warrior, or Synchron and the Scrap Warrior, and that's going to make the Hyper Librarian. Okay, now that we've got that online, we're going to summon the Stardust Charge Warrior next, using Jet Synchron plus Junk Speeder. We'll throw the Stardust Charge Warrior in the extra monster zone, and now we get a draw off Hyper Librarian, a draw off the Charge Warrior, and then we also get to search off the Jet Synchron, and we can even chain block the Jet Synchron to be last, so we don't draw the target we're trying to search here. And that's going to be Junk Meister. We're going to add a Junk Meister from our deck to our hand. And then we get to draw 2 on top of that. Okay, so next up, let's see here. We're going to want to summon Junk Meister, and we're going to reveal either of our Stardusts in order to do that. We can summon, and then of course Junk Meister gets to activate here, and we can add the Junk Armor from our deck to our hand. Now Junk Armor's effect gets to activate. We can special summon it to our field. And then we will activate, or sorry, not activate. We are next going to Synchro Summon. we're going to make the Stardust Dragon using Assault Synchron plus Stardust Charge Warrior. Throw that in the extra monster zone, again as always saving space in the main zones. Get our draw, that's our third draw this turn. And next up we're going to activate the Stardust Illumination. We're going to use that to get the Trail online. Of course, because we control Stardust Dragon, we can summon her directly to the field. Now we're going to go for the Crimson Dragon using Stardust Synchron plus the Stardust Dragon in the EMZ. This should be right. Yeah, we don't need to go for an 8 first. We can go for 12. Definitely got to get that Crimson Dragon online, not only for the Majestic Shooting Star, but also the Synchro Rumble is crucial to any Synchron combo line. So Crimson Dragon in turn also becomes very important. Alright, let's add that Synchro Rumble from our deck to our hand. Hyper Librarian gets to draw. Okay, from here we're going to go into our graveyard and activate the Revolution Synchron. I want to get Herald of the Arclight online, but I want to make sure that we're doing Stardust Illumination and Revolution Synchron first, because otherwise those cards would get banished, right? And we don't want that, because then we obviously don't get Trail or Revolution Synchron. So we're going to activate Junkmeister, reducing its level by 1, so it's a level 3 non-tuner. And then now we can make the Herald of the Arclight using our Revolution Synchron plus the Junkmeister. Hyper Librarian gets to draw. And now at this stage, I'm actually going to activate the Junk Armor effect in order to summon another Stardust Synchron from my deck. I do have one in the graveyard, but I don't have any monsters I really want to tribute right now. I'm going to synchro the Trail and the Stardust Synchron in order to make the Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon. Now we can activate Excel Stardust, as well as Trail. Trail, of course, is going to get us a token, and then the Excel Stardust is going to get us a tuner out of the graveyard. So token can go over there. Excel Stardust is going to revive the Assault Synchron. Hyper Librarian is going to draw, and now we are going to summon out the Bestial Dispater using Assault Synchron plus Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon. Alright, now at this stage, we have the ability to activate the Stardust Synchron in the graveyard. This will sound a little bit weird, but we're actually going to want to tribute the Bestial Dispater in order to revive, because that'll trigger the Assault Synchron effect. It does also trigger the Stardust Trail, but we'd rather definitely have the Bestial Dispater here than the level 4 non-tuner body. If you didn't summon the token earlier, you could revive the Stardust Trail here, but that would then enable a slightly different line from what I'm going to show you. Alright, so Bestial Dispater revives. Now we're going to use Stardust Synchron plus the token in order to make Excel Synchron. If you revived Trail, you can make Omega and Hand Rip here. However, you wouldn't then be able to end on Baron de Fleur. But what I'm going to do for this combo line is instead, I think I'm just going to activate the Synchro Rumble. We can revive the Scrap Synchron. Now I can make the Jurashin using Scrap Synchron plus Bestial Dispater. Of course, I've already got the Crimson Dragon on the field, so we can just go into the Shooting Majestic Dragon with that. Like so. Targeting the Jurashin. Get that level 11. And that just leaves us with Excel Synchron plus TG Hyper Librarian, which, like last time, we're going to cap off by making the Baron de Fleur. So there we go. There is another setup where we end on 3 Omnis plus the board wipe, and we do so with Speeder even through a negate, thanks to the Signal. Alright, now that I've shown you those 2 combos, let's get into some Master ranked gameplay. There are other 1-card lines besides those, but I wanted to show the 2 combo lines that offer you protection in the 1-card combo line. I'll talk a little bit more about the other starters in the deck breakdown. So this first game is actually going to be us playing through some turn 0 plays from K9 Vanquish Soul. I'm going to lead with normal summon Junk Armor to go for Stardust Synchron, which can add the Synchro Fellowship. That's going to add the Junk Synchron as well as Crossroad Sonic Chick. And this is actually why we play Crossroad Sonic Chick. It lets Stardust Synchron be a starter that lets you go into level 5. However, here our opponent's going to activate the Canine Izuna. Since our Sonic Chick was able to activate in the hand, now they can go for a rank 5. I was wondering if they go for Valen, but it's actually going to be the Nosh Knight. Nosh Knight's going to activate and then absorb the Stardust Synchron as a material here. But what I can do is I can activate Stardust Illumination, send a trail from the deck to the graveyard, then activate Junk Signal, tributing the Crossroad Sonic Chick for Scrap Synchron. Now Trail can revive since a monster was tributed, and we can go 1+4 into the Junk Speeder. Now this kind of sequencing I felt was really important to show, and this kind of hand I felt like was really important to show in general, because as much as it helps to see like a clean combo line, right? A lot of games with Synchron are actually going to play out like this, where rather than open a clean starter, it's going to be kind of a mishmash of your engine pieces that you have to get to a Junk Speeder, while also playing through the opponent's hand traps and disruption. Now, here I'd like to show you me summoning Junk Speeder into all my tuners in full combo, but our opponent's actually going to concede at this point. Even though it's a bit of a brief one-turn replay, I still thought it was important to show us taking a little bit of a weird hand and navigating it even through some K9 turn 0 plays. But like I said, a lot of games with with Synchrons in general are going to be like this, where you have to navigate a little bit of weirdness to get your speeder. And a lot of Synchron games are also going to be like this in that your opponent's going to concede as soon as speeder resolves. Let's go and see a going second game for a little bit of variety here. Alright, this opponent's going to be on Snake Eye Yummy. Very cool. It's not the same kind of list that I topped with in the most recent Hololive tournament, but I like seeing different lists, because I like seeing what other people are cooking up with the deck. Anyway, now here we open some pretty good hand traps, but one of the cool things about modern Synchron is that our ratios are actually such that we have the ability to fit in a lot more hand traps than previous builds did. So when my opponent goes to summon Poplar, I'm going to do Fuelos first, of course, because we want to test for Ash Blossom, then fire off the Max C. Both of these are going to end up resolving here. Poplar is going to activate, they're going to get the Divine Temple. Next, they're going to activate Divine Temple, placing the Birch, sending Diabellstar to special summon a Diabellstar. We're going to draw, Diabellstar is going to activate, sending Sinful Spoils of Betrayal Silvera, and then pass back over to us. So they do have a sort of Omni-Negate style effect, but we have the Full Speed Warrior and Junk Signal here, so that should be enough to push through what they've got. Alright, we're going to normal summon Full Speed Warrior, they're going to go for Birch, we're going to add Synchro Fellowship. Synchro Fellowship's going to activate here. They're going to chain Sinful Spoils of Betrayal. Now, I can't negate this, unfortunately, because, the Junk Signal can only stop effects that are activated, in response to a Synchro monster's effect, right? Not a spell card. They're going to cycle the Poplar and the Diabellstar here a little bit, but that's totally fine. They're going to set up the Wanted for the next turn. Now here I can activate Stardust Synchron, tribute this Full Speed Warrior in order to summon, and add the Illumination. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing as last time. Illumination, dump Trail. Now we can go Junk Signal, tribute the Stardust Synchron, special Scrap Synchron. Trail gets to revive. And now we can Synchro Summon for the Junk Speeder. Like I mentioned a couple of times already, it's a lot more about navigating hands and boards like this than it is sometimes about, doing the perfect combo lines every single time. We're going to go for Birch for Flamberge, presumably, or maybe Diabellstar, Snake Eyes. I'm going to Ash Blossom to negate that. We can Synchro Fellowship here to level adjust, was my plan, but they're just going to concede. So that is definitely fine with me. Alright. Yeah, no, my plan was to Synchro Fellowship, adjust the Speeder down to level 4, then Jet Synchron plus Speeder into Hyper Librarian. That also searches Junk Meister in order for a non-tuner to make more Synchro follow-up plays. Like, probably be Assault Synchron plus Meister into the Charge Warrior, draw, and then we can start climbing from there. Alright, let's show off another going first game here. Alright, so this time we're up against Malice, and this opponent is also going to concede at some point during our turn 1, but I definitely still wanted to show us navigating different hands and scenarios during the first turn. Okay, so here we've got the Full Speed Warrior and Synchro Fellowship. I'm going to start with the Full Speed Warrior, which does actually end up baiting an Ash Blossom. I was expecting Imperm, but we'll definitely take the Ash Blossom as well. Now from here we can activate the Synchro Fellowship in our hand. We're of course going to add Junk Synchron, and then we can get Scrap Synchron as well. I'll just discard Nib here. Now we can use Scrap Synchron plus the Full Speed Warrior in order to make the Scrap Warrior. And on summon, the Scrap Warrior gets to activate, and now we can search up the Junk Signal. Synchro Fellowship's going to reduce the level of the Scrap Warrior in order to let us summon the Junk Synchron. We're going to revive the Full Speed Warrior, and now here we are going to summon out the Junk Speeder. Junk Speeder is going to activate, and this time our opponent doesn't concede right away, so that's nice. We're going to start a Synchron for the Stardust Illumination. And we're definitely going to want to get the Hyper Librarian online ASAP here. I'll throw out the Assault Synchron, and then we're going to go for the Stardust Charge Warrior using Jet Synchron plus the Junk Speeder. This will give us 2 draws as well as the Search off Jet Synchron. So there's our Junk Meister. And there's our draws. Now, unfortunately, we did get the Junk Armor off our draws. That does happen a fair bit, just because you're drawing so many cards as you're also trying to search up stuff. So, we don't get to add Junk Armor to this board. So we're going to have to combo a little bit differently here. Because I know that, like, later on I'm going to be 1 body down. Or not even later on, like, relatively soon into the combo, I'm going to be 1 body down. I'm going to make Excel Stardust instead of regular Stardust first this time. And then I'm going to Tribute for the Stardust Dragon, which actually was a bit of a misplay. I didn't have to do that, because I'm not going to trigger the Assault Synchron here anyway. But now we can make the Crimson Dragon. Librarian gives us 2 draws. And then, of course, the Crimson Dragon can search up the Synchro Rumble as well. Alright, draw 1, draw 2. Here's the Synchro Rumble. Gonna revive the Stardust Dragon here, and here the opponent's gonna throw out their next hand trap, Retaliating Sea. Now, of course, everything getting banished is gonna be a little bit of an issue for a deck like this. Not too much at this stage in the combo line, because we've already summoned out so much, but I am gonna have to do some kind of weird stuff here. And as you saw, I didn't get the Revolution Synchron, because the card that got sent from the top of the deck got banished instead of going to the graveyard. I wasn't able to fulfill the cost, but I can sort of hodgepodge the ability to make a Baron de Fleur here. I have to use my Hyper Librarian in order to do it, but it's worth it. We can Baron pop the Retaliating Sea, no longer have to worry about that. And I'm not really worried about the Maxi either because of the Cross-Out Designator I've got. Sure enough, they are going to throw out the Maxi in response to Stardust Illumination, but here is the Cross-Out Designator that's going to negate that. And now we can summon Stardust Trail. Crimson Dragon I'm going to use on the Baron de Fleur here in order to summon out Bestial Dissipator. And then Dissipator can revive the Stardust Synchron. And at this point I was actually about to make Omega and hand rip the opponent before setting 3 and passing. So my opponent would have a 3-card hand going into the Dissipator negate, the Baron negate, Stardust Dragon can negate effects that destroy cards, and then I have 2 Imperms and the Junk Signal as well. Got one last going second game for us to end off with here. And this final game is going to be up against Yummy. I think it's actually Mitsurugi Yummy, but I should have checked before going into the game. Alright, so here we've got the Droll and Mockbird. I'm pretty sure this was Mitsu Yummy. I'm remembering the game now. We're going to lead with Marshmallow, activating the Marshmallow Yummy to special summon, and then link it off for the Yummy Snatchy. Now, all I've got here is the Droll, and if it's pure Yummy, the Droll actually does not do a ton into this kind of a combo line. I actually got pretty lucky that I was facing specifically Mitsurugi Yummy, because this is definitely the matchup where Droll and Lockbird has the highest impact. They're going to use Cupsy Yummy Way to get the Cupsy Yummy and Lollipo, discarding the Lollipo. I'm going to fire off the Droll and Lockbird here. And then they're going to chain Mitsurugi Prayers, which is how I ended up figuring out how I knew they were on Mitsurugi. They showed me. Alright, so no more searches, so that Habakiri could summon, you know, like a Saji, but it won't do much good. And Cupsy Yummy also can't find the Yummy Surprise here. Speaking of surprise, I'm actually a little bit surprised in how my opponent played. I think they might be new to Yummy, because they're going to make Lollipo here. Which I was like, okay, this is fine. But then they also just went into the Cookie Yummy as well? Question mark? Which was extra fine with me. Yeah, I think they must be new to the deck and just assume you want to summon out the Yummy monsters as bosses, but not exactly how it works. We're going to use Reinforcement of the Army to add full Speed Warrior. Even though I've got Junk Meister in hand, and that's also, you know, a really good opener, I'm going to leave the full Speed Warrior because it's more likely to draw out negates, and then I can extend with the Junk Meister. But here our opponent didn't even, like, bother, I guess, playing the game out. So that's, I mean, whatever. We like to see it. Anyway, let's finish off with a full deck breakdown, and then we'll end the video. Okay, so here's my list for Synchron. Certainly my end boards that I'm making here are not as flashy as a lot of other Synchron end boards, but I wanted to go for consistency and balance that with power, as opposed to just playing like a ton of bricks in both the main and extra deck to try to output, you know, a crazy board, right? I already think 3 Omni Negates plus a board wipe plus a hand rip is a pretty crazy board, but you can do even crazier stuff with Synchron. But again, this is a more, I guess, realistic approach to the deck as far as like trying to really ladder with it and have a lot of good games on, a consistent basis. But as I touched on, we do have other 1-card starters besides Junk Meister and Full Speed Warrior. Those are going to be Stardust Synchron, can be normal summoned, add Synchro Fellowship, which searches Junk Synchron and Crossroads Sonic Chick. You would then actually discard the Junk Synchron, which would trigger the Crossroads Sonic Chick in order to be able to activate. And then you have a 4 plus a 1. You could also start with the Synchro Fellowship. If you open this plus a bunch of non-engine, you can activate to add Junk Synchron plus Full Speed Warrior. And then it's as simple as discarding Full Speed Warrior, normal summoning Junk Synchron to revive, and then you can go into your 5. Of course, we're rocking a playset of Tuning, which can search the Stardust Synchron as well. So those are even more starters, making for a total of 15. The main reason I didn't cover these other starters in the combo section at the beginning is because, like, these let you go into Junk Speeder, but without an additional body and also without a negate in order to help support your board. So, like, yeah, of course you'll still do that if you have to, but I really wanted to focus on optimized combo lines that insulate your combo with a negate, as well as, of course, going into your board. So even though we're on a more consistent build, as you can see, the main deck is still 44 cards, and a lot of the reason for that is that there's a lot of cards in here I really don't want to draw. Stuff like Junk Armor, Crossroads Sonic Chick, Stardust Trail is a big one on top of the Junk Armor. You know, the Rev Synchron, Assault Synchron. These are all cards that are going to be searched and or summoned from the deck. Illumination's another one of those. Synchro Rumble, ideally we don't draw. And it's not just a matter of our opening hand. Of course, the TG Hyper Librarian is going to get us a lot of mid-combo draws. That's why I think Synchron, like, honestly, I'm at 44 cards, and I feel like that's probably the bare minimum I would want to be at for a Synchron deck, just to make sure that we're not, you know, opening too many of our bricks that we need to search. But of course, as we demonstrated during the combo, or not the combo, the gameplay section, there are a lot of weird hands that you can navigate into a full combo anyway. That is absolutely something you got to keep in mind when you're playing Synchron, is again, you got to be flexible, and as long as you can get to a Junk Speeder and it resolves, It doesn't matter how clean or sloppy you get there. It's just important that you get there, right? Going second can be a bit of a challenge for this deck, as can playing through hand traps in certain scenarios. For going second, I really like having Black Rose Dragon in the extra deck. There are a lot of Synchron hands where you can begin with a Black Rose Dragon and then still follow up with a full combo. Especially if you're able to go like normal summon Junk Synchron into Reviva 2 into Junk Speeder right afterward, right? That's very easy to do with a lot of hands going second. So this is very optional, but I really like having Black Rose Dragon. Pretty much everything else in the extra I think is needed for comboing, but you do have the one flex spot here. Alright, I think that's pretty much going to cover everything I wanted to discuss as far as Synchron goes. So as always, thank you for watching all the way to the end. One of the best ways you can support a smaller YouTube channel like myself. But speaking of support, I definitely want to make sure that we go out of our way to thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers for their very generous support. So let's move to our outro and do that now. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.